Hi, it's Dorothy Guining with Scrapbooking Quebec. Today I'm here for the Scrapbook Nerd online shop, and I'm going to be creating in real time a 12 by 12 layout featuring the Simple Stories Feelin Frosty collection. If you're not into real time, please mute me and use the gear icon to speed up this video. I only cut out about 2 minutes of the entire process. My plan is to talk you through my thought process of creating a page 2 design. And that's what I call it when I create a complementary page to a single page that I've already made. Essentially, I'm going to be stretching a single page layout into a double page spread. I do this all the time, and these are always simple pages designed to coordinate with more fancy, more complicated pages. The material I'm going to be using comes from the Scrapbook Nerd online shop, so you will find links below to the shop along with the products I use. Also, if you're tuning in November 25th or 26th, 2022, you still have time to participate in the Scrapbook Nerds Prepping for the Holidays virtual crop. I'm saying this because there are prizes to be had. Also, the page that I'm going to be stretching, the one on the left, was one of the crop challenges. So you will find a link below to the Facebook group in case you're curious. So let's jump right in. So the first thing I want to do is have a look at the page I want to stretch. So I created this page. It's kind of a fancy page. I took a little bit of time or a little extra time doing it. But on this page already, I have the title. I have my journaling. So that I don't have to worry about on the second page because I have two more photos that I want to add to this story, and it is the very same story. So the journaling, the story's already there, as well as the title. Now, sometimes I stretch a page into a double page spread, and the story is different. And in those cases, I would need another title, or at the very least, more journaling. So what I have from the original page is I have the scraps. Now, when I create a single page layout and I want to stretch it into a double page spread, what I usually do is save the scraps and I put them in a little folded over piece of paper. So that's what you see here right now. Most of this is the Feelin Frosty collection, but I did incorporate this wood grain paper, and this is from Simple Stories. In addition to the scraps, I also have the stickers, once again, from the Feelin Frosty collection, leftovers from what I already did on the original page. And of course, I need a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock. So this is Basil Marshmallow cardstock. When I create a double page spread, also what I want to repeat are the embellishments. So you see here, I already have the stickers. These are stickers from the Feelin Frosty collection. But what I did do is I have some die cut snowflakes. These are cut out with vellum, and I had a bunch left over, so I saved those. And also what I did was I grabbed a tool that I used on the original page. So you can see this shelf kind of behind the photo. That I created with a die from Tim Holtz. Here it is right here. I think it's available in the shop. If it is, I will link it up below. So it's kind of like this tree line die. There it is. So I have that handy because I'm going to want to repeat the same embellishments on the complementary page that I'm creating today. Also, I grabbed the alphas. Again, I don't need a title on the page I'm creating today, but I have them here just in case. And in addition to that, I have the enamel dots that I used on the original page. So let me clear this off my desk and we are going to start creating the complementary page. The first thing I want to do is determine my page design. And my page design is always dictated by the number of photos I have, along with the scraps of paper I have left over from the original page. There's another thing I have to determine as well, and that is what side to place my page 2 design or the complementary page. Even though I call it a page 2 design, often my page 2 design is the actual page 1. It's just what I call it. But essentially, it's a complimentary page. In this case, I plan to place it on the right here, and I only have 2 photos. So on the original page, I have a horizontal photo. So what I want to do, I think, is create a contrast. So if I had them continue like this, that would be very doable, but I definitely like creating a contrast. So by creating a border here, that immediately creates a contrast with the original page. I also have 12-inch strips of paper, and that's not always the case when I'm creating a page 2 design. When you have 12-inch strips of paper, it makes it really easy to create border pages. So that's what I'm going to do here. So let me play around with a bit of the paper. So I have this wood grain. I'm thinking right now that the bottom part of this layout, the frame here, is in the wood grain. So I'm just going to continue this over. Now I would like to point out there is no right and wrong way here. I'm just letting you know how I approach doing a page 2 design. When I create borders, I like to have kind of a, I don't know, another contrasting piece. So I'm kind of liking the look of this. So all I'm doing here is repeating the same colors, the same prints that you see over here. I also have this snowflake paper that I would like to introduce. So I'm thinking I might even add a little bit of that there, and I'm already liking this. This is really an easy page design, and that's another thing I would like to point out. This page here, I spent time on it. It's more of a fancy design. I want to maintain this page as a focal point. So when I create a page 2 design, it's always really quick and easy. Usually it's straight lines. That's easy on the eye, and they're also really quick to make. I'm thinking here as well, I might want to kind of end this page with a very narrow border, and I'm thinking probably in this wood grain paper. So I'm liking this already. These are 3.5 by 5 photos, so I'm going to want to make this a little bit wider. And what I'm going to start to do right now is just trim down these strips of paper. Getting out my trimmer here. Those are going to be 3.5 inches wide, but I am going to be putting a border on them, so they're going to be 3 3/4 inches wide. I'm going to make this, again, there's no right or wrong here. I'm going to be doing it at about 4.5 inches. I can always make it smaller if I want, but I don't want to cut it too small, just in case I don't like it. I'm also going to cut myself another strip of this wood grain paper here. I want to add a narrow border over on the far right, so that's what I'm working on right now. I'm cutting this at about 1.5 inches because when I create a narrow border on one side of the paper, you're going to see what I do in a minute. I often do it from behind the page and then cut it. So even though I'm only going to be using a narrow strip, I want it to be quite wide so that it really adheres to the back of the page, and that will make sense in a few moments. As for these other papers here, this snowflake paper, I am going to cut just a little bit of that. Let's see here. There seems to be a direction with this paper. I'm looking at the hearts, so I don't want the hearts to be upside down, so I'm being aware of that when I cut my pieces here. There we go. Anyway. And right now, I know I want this one to be fairly wide. So I'm not really thinking about how wide I want them. When I'm cutting these papers, what I'm mostly thinking about is I'm really cutting them wider than I know I want them to appear on the page. That way, it gives me a little bit of playroom. If I cut them too small, then I don't have the option of making them bigger. So let's have a look at what this is going to look like right now. The idea being, I have my, let me just move this for a moment, give me more room. I have the wood grain paper here. I know I want the snowflake paper here, just a little hint of it. And then I want this to be fairly wide. Obviously, you're not going to see this. And this is going to be like this. So this will be like this. This is appearing much wider, mind you. That will be trimmed down a bit. that's the first thing I'm going to do right now is prepare my foundation page with this border on the side. So what I'm going to do right now is I am going to adhere that strip of paper behind my foundation page. I just want it to peek out a little bit. It's kind of a classic foundation page that I use when I want to create a very quick page. So what I do is I have a very narrow border on one side and then a wider border on the opposite side. And that's exactly what you're going to see me do in a moment. So I'm doing this here, making sure it's straight. And once I'm happy with that, then I'm going to put the entire foundation page in my trimmer, and I'm going to trim it down at a 1/2 inch. I like to do this after because if I were to just say I wanted a 1/4 inch here and it cut my white paper first, there is a possibility that I may have done it a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, and that would have made it complicated to create a 12 by 12 paper. But by adhering this strip of paper first, that gave me the option to make it a little bit bigger than I had expected or a little bit smaller than I had expected, and then I could have trimmed it at 12 inches. I hope that makes sense. The idea here is it gives me a bit of wiggle room with that border over on the far right. So now we're going to have a better idea how this is going to look simply because I've got my page trimmed down to 12 by 12 with that border. And I couldn't see that before because it was just extra big. So that seems more proportional to me right now with my photos. I'm also going to want to add mats to these photos. Now, before adhering this, I am going to want to apply a bit of ink. Now, on the original page, all of my page parts, the page mat that you see underneath here, were all inked with VersaFine Clair Morning Mist ink. This is the ink I'm going to be using. So when I was getting out my material for this particular project, I made sure I got out the very same ink. So what I'm going to do right now is just speed up the film because this is pretty boring. I'm just going to ink all of these pieces right now. So I've adhered all the pieces together and I inked them. And what I'm noticing here, and this often happens, my strips of paper, even though they're 12 inches, they're not all exactly the same length. So I'm going to try to tidy this up a bit before I actually adhere it to my foundation page. Sometimes this isn't always perfect, but I just kind of do the best I can. And what I'm doing right now is just kind of getting rid of a little bit of that snowflake paper that was extra at the bottom. So I'm happy with that. I am going to adhere it to the foundation page. Then what I'm going to do is mat my photos, and then I'm all ready at the embellishment process. So again, when I create these page 2 designs, one of my main goals is to do it quickly because I already spent a lot of time on the original page. So the idea is I just want to create a nice page that coordinates, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on the page. And I also find, and I mentioned this earlier, that when I'm creating these complementary pages, I've already created a fancy page. So I want this page to be my focal point still. So if I had another fancy page, it would take away from the original page, or that's my thought process anyway. So here I go, my page is all set up. So I do know I want to create a photo mat here. I often use my kind of scrappy cardstock. You can see here I've already have some tape on it that was from a previous project or a mistake that I made. And this one here, you can even see the cardstock is ripped. I often use these as photo mats. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. These are 3.5 by 5 photos. I use these all the time. So with my kind of scrappy cardstock, if I don't want to waste it, and I never want to waste it, I just cut these standard size mats out and they are ready to use. So it's a way of recycling. So sometimes I make mistakes and I have no problem not using a mistake if I can't recuperate it, if I can't fix my mistake, but I almost always recycle my mistakes, if that makes any sense. So here I go with my photo mats. Those are done. Now I'm happy with that. There is an order to these photos, believe it or not. That's me venturing out into a snowbank, and that's me turning around for a photo. So I'm going to place these photos here already. Sometimes I wait to adhere the photos down simply because when I create embellishments, I like to be able to move around my photos. Now it does help what I should say is I know I can move around these photos for a little while even though I'm adhering the photos down because of the adhesive I'm using. These are, I think they're called, I don't know, adhesive strips by Easy Runner, something like that. And anyway, I will write it in the description box below. It is a permanent adhesive, but it gives me a bit of wiggle room. I still can move around my photos for a little while before it actually becomes permanent. And for me, that's really important because I change my mind a lot when I'm scrapbooking. So for me to use an adhesive that becomes permanent instantaneously is not a good option because I'd be ripping up paper all the time. Anyway, these aren't exactly in the middle, but I'm good with that. Again, I want to create something very, very quickly here. So now what I have to do is determine how I am going to embellish this page. So as I mentioned earlier, I have my snowflakes here, and I have a bunch of snowflakes here. I have these stickers here, so that's great. Wow, sorry about that big noise. And I also have, let's see here, this here is that tree line die I mentioned to you earlier. That is from Tim Holtz. So I'm going to want to repeat that as well. I have a scrap of this paper, so I don't have any extra of those trees, so I'm going to have to cut it out. Anyway, I think what I'm going to do first is cut out this tree line die. So that will give me an idea because that's going to be probably the foundation layer of my embellishment cluster. So I'm going to get out my really old beat up Big Shot here that I love so much. I've lost that piece of paper. Oh no, here it is. Okay, let me get out that die. Here it is. And I am just gonna run it through here. Really cute die. I know it's not the normal color for trees, but I used it in the original page and I was just having fun with it, and I actually quite like the look of it. So depending on the type of page you're creating, sometimes if it's just kind of whimsical, you can use really fun and, you know, maybe not found in nature colors just to add to the whimsy of the layout. And that's exactly what I'm doing here right now. I see there's a couple little things I'd like to poke out. It cut well, the trees, but there are these little detailed pieces here. Normally, I would have my little poker stick, and I can't seem to find it. Oh, here it is. These are things that you don't usually see me fuss with when I am not doing real time. But hey, this is the real deal right now. I hope you're not too bored. Let me just get these out. Anyway, A lot of this is probably, I'm not sure quite yet, but probably going to be covered up with those snowflakes because it is going to be the base of an embellishment cluster. So there will be some stuff layered on top of it. Anyway, let me get rid of this big shot right now. And I'll get rid of the die. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to put this page beside here because when I create complementary pages, the placement of the embellishment cluster is important. Often I create layouts with a diagonal design. So I often do, here it's kind of a diagonal design. I have a chunk of the cluster here and it kind of goes up towards the top right. Mind you, there is this straight line, a shelf across the middle. So that's what I'm thinking about when I start embellishing my complementary page or my page 2 design. So what I'm thinking at this point, I want to continue this shelf, this line that you see of the trees. That's going to be the base of my cluster. And I've got to decide where I'm going to place it. Could be like this. Nope. Could be, I think I'm going to have it, not sure. I'm going to have it come out from one of these strips of paper. And you can see here that I am actually lifting the paper that I already adhered. Again, that is because of the adhesive I'm using. And that is why it's important to me. I do this stuff all the time. So I've got to decide, do I want it sticking out from here? Or do I want it sticking out from here? Or do I want it just sticking out from here? I'm kind of thinking one of these two. I'm going to do it right from here. So I want it to be at the same level. Where is my ruler? Oh no, my tape, I just realized, fell on the floor. I'm going to have to stop the film and go get that. But first, I'm just going to try to line up these trees here. I want them to be at the same level so that they just kind of follow, your eye follows this line of trees. I'm just going to stop the film for a minute and go pick up my adhesive that fell on the floor. I am back with my adhesive. So now what I want to do is continue with this. Now, if I look at this, I have a line across the 2 pages, but I also have this subtle diagonal design, and that is created because of these snowflakes here. Now these snowflakes, I had an extra bunch of them, so that's why I'm not cutting out snowflakes right now. And these, to be perfectly honest, are cut out from a few different die sets. I don't even know which ones they are from. I think one of them is a Cartabella collection, another one is a Scrapbook.com collection. The whole point is, and I said this recently in another video with regards to leaves, this is the type of die that once you have a certain variety of sizes, you really don't have to invest any more in that type of die, or that's my opinion anyway. So I'm not sure what's out there for snowflake dies. I will check the shop, and if there are some, I will list them in the description box below. Anyway, with regards to these snowflakes, what I want to do with these is kind of establish a visual triangle. I realize this is extremely subtle, but if I look at these snowflakes, it kind of goes up like this, even though they kind of go down the side. So I'm going to want to continue this, maybe, this is what I'm thinking anyway, it might change, down the side a bit. This is quite big. I'm not sure. Let's just have a look here. Maybe I want that kind of like this. I don't know. Maybe I want a medium one up here. Not quite. Or maybe I like that. Again, this is simply playing. That's it. That's not bad. I'm thinking though, I want them to get progressively smaller. I want the main part to be around there. Maybe something like that. 5. Let's see what else I have. I like that one too. I feel like I need a really tiny one. Here's a tiny one. Again, these are so subtle. Maybe. I also find that when I am creating embellishment clusters, it's hard to really get an idea of how they're going to look until they're actually adhered down. So I play a lot, but they always look better once I actually adhere them to the page. Anyway, I'm just going to leave it like that because I could take forever doing that. I also want to dig into the sticker sheet, and I'm looking at the stickers here, and there seems to be this brown color here. So I'm going to look at the sticker sheet. I'm hoping yes, I do have some wax paper here. And the only thing I have in that brown color is this log with the heart. So I know I'm going to want to work with that. Now, this can be a Christmas collection. I'm looking at these Christmas trees, the truck with the tree here, but this really isn't Christmas. This was actually in February last year. So what I'm going to do is just get out these trees here. I'm going to continue with the trees. I'm just going to put a few things on wax paper. I may not use them all. That pink is a little strong because I'm looking at that pale pink there. Mittens? I'll put the mittens on too. Okay, let's see how this is going to look. Now what I'm going to do is just kind of rip these a little bit, or I'll cut them. I'm not sure how all of this sound is going to be on this real-time video, so I hope it's not too annoying. Anyway, this is not something I plan to do a lot, but I thought I would do it for the fun of it, just to give you an idea of my true thought process when I'm actually creating these layouts. Okay, so I have some pieces here. I have some snowflakes. Let's have a look at what I'm going to do. I'm thinking I just want to kind of establish, all right, so I'm going to continue with this. Maybe this little tree up here. I'm kind of liking that. So let's get these snowflakes back here. Let's see how it's going to look. I don't know. Maybe something like that. Again, I'm going to be putting those enamel dots there. Maybe, I don't know about these mittens. I could have them kind of hanging down. I don't know. You certainly need mittens in these parts in February, let me tell you. Quebec is very, very cold in the winter time. I'm not sure about that, but I will leave it for the time being. So what I'm going to do right now is adhere these pieces to the page, simply because, like I mentioned earlier, it always looks messy at this point. I always have a doubt at this point, but I also know through experience that once these pieces are adhered to the page, they always look better. So that's what I'm going to do. And I am noticing I forgot to poke out a few of these little pieces, so I'm going to do it right now. Because once I adhere it, oops, it's going to be too late. So let me adhere these down. I also want to point out, this is a collection that I bought last year. I'm going to be honest, I found it a little cutesy for me. I did create some pages that I liked with it, that's true. But I put it aside, and I'm always amazed how it is when you pull out something that you've set aside, and maybe I was tired of using it, or I don't know, but I'm actually having a lot of fun using it right now. So anyway, sometimes when you put your collections aside for a little bit, they end up with a renewed interest. Also, I'm a bit of a pattern paper wimp. I like my camera shut off again, so I am going to finish that thought on voiceover. What I was saying was, I am a pattern paper wimp. When pattern paper is overwhelming or outside of my comfort zone, one trick I find helpful is to cut it up in strips, like I did on the page you see on the left. I took that paper that I found kind of overwhelming, cut it up in strips, and I almost made my own pattern paper with it, and I find it really fun to use paper that way. Now you can see what I was doing was basically continuing adhering my embellishments down, and I was pointing out those snowflakes. So basically what I'm doing with those snowflakes is creating a visual triangle across the two pages, even though they're transparent and almost invisible. They do have an impact on the page. And now you can see I also have those little alpha books out from Simple Stories. I think those are probably retired by now. Anyway, I have a bunch of them, and what I want to do is make a repetition of the title that you see on the left page. So what I thought I would do is just add the date, the year 2022 on the right-hand page. Now I don't have enough twos to do it all in one color. So what you're going to see me do is kind of mix up that teal along with the pink as well. And I do want to talk about these alpha books as well, even though actually I'm not sure. I think they may be retired. They are harder and harder to find. But Simple Stories does have a lot of these sticker books. Now, they are fairly economical, and the reason why is because they are a much more paperweight than your cardstock stickers. For that reason, you have to be careful using them. Now, some people don't like them. I quite like them, but I have become used to actually using them. So what you have to do is just be careful. They are more fragile than your cardstock heavy-duty stickers, but with a little bit of practice, they are very workable, or I find them very workable, but now I know to be careful with them. I am putting them on wax paper. Often I don't do it with these stickers from these sticker books, but in this case I put them on wax paper. I do want to play around with placement a bit, and I didn't really press down hard on the letters because I didn't want to have to pull the letters off really hard as well. Anyway, and when I'm putting it there, I'm finding that I almost have a gap between that brown sticker with the heart on it and the number. So the placement of these embellishments are starting to bother me a bit. You're going to see me fuss quite a bit with them, and in the end I end up moving around the snowflakes a little bit, but really it's very, very minimal. Again, I'm still maintaining that visual triangle, or creating that visual triangle across the two pages with those snowflakes there. So anyway, I'm almost done here. I do want to point out that this very last little segment, I did speed it up twice because I felt like I was taking forever just moving around these snowflakes. And in the end, because my camera kept turning off, I just simply left it as is. I went and had a little bite to eat, and I came back and adhered the snowflakes in the place where I finally decided to do it. And you'll see that in a minute with the still shots. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this real-time-ish video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the Scrapbook Nerd YouTube channel, we would be absolutely thrilled if you did. The same thing for my channel, Scrapbooking Quebec. Also, don't forget, if you want to participate in that crop that's happening over on the Scrapbook Nerd Friends Group Facebook page, you have until November 26th to submit your challenge. Also, check out the shop for this fun collection and more. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.